Leonard Wood. You know, we've come a long way, I think, in safety, and a lot of it is because we've got leaders across the board, civilians, military, taking a look at, how to get in people's minds and get people to slow down. And since, I've been in the Army about 31 years, in 1980, we lost 480 soldiers to accidental deaths. 480. When you think about that in size formations, that's about a battalion's worth of soldiers. A battalion's worth of soldiers were killed in 1980 because of accidental deaths. In FY10, we've come a long way. In fact, we've come down to about 180 that we lost in FY10. One is too many, but coming from over 400, nearly 500, down to 180 was a huge change in thinking, and folks getting involved and watching and monitoring soldiers' high-risk behaviors. So I think that that is a pretty, it just goes to show you about what leadership and leaders involved in people's life and identifying high-risk behaviors can have a huge impact on saving people's lives. And if all this time, and we had a great fair yesterday, a great safety fair, and at the end of this couple of weeks, if we can get some seeds of thought going through people's minds about how to do things more safely, and if we can save one life, then I think it's all worth it. And that's what this couple of weeks is about. But it's more, safety is more than just this couple of weeks of the safety fair. It is something that we've got to think of all the time. And us as leaders of this great institution, this great post, and these great communities, I mean, we have really got to get after and continue to mentor those folks and pay attention to those soldiers and civilians who have high-risk behaviors. And, of course, most of those are between the ages of 18 and 24. But you still have those folks that are a little bit beyond the age of 24 and still exhibit those high-risk behaviors. And some of them are senior individuals. So we've got to work together to get after that. The DUIs on Fort Leonard Wood. I've been pressing pretty hard on DUIs, specifically myself personally on senior leader misconduct involving alcohol. As far as taking direct action, I was, delegating it down. I've stopped that. There'll be a long gray line outside my office, and there has been for the last month or so, as we try to hold senior leaders accountable for mistakes. And a lot of it has to do around alcohol. And most of it has to do with DUIs. Just to give you some numbers, in 2010, we had 124 DUIs. And just since January of this year, 47. Those are the folks that were caught. Okay? Those are the folks that were caught. That's not speaking of folks that got away with something. And what you will find is those folks that get caught with DUIs have done it a number of times. In fact, I had one person in front of my desk that he was doing all the math, calculating how much food he ate and how many beers he drank, and somehow he thought he ate enough food to compensate for 8 beers. Okay, so that's sort of somebody who's calculating that much, how many beers to how much food they have, has got more than a DUI problem. He's got an alcohol problem. And I think as we as a force have got an alcohol issue brewing out there. We've had one for a while, and we've got to get our arms around that. But those are just some statistics. Cell phone violations. And these are the folks that we caught, not the 7 that I saw violating our cell phone policy this morning when I was on my run. Cell phone violations that have been caught in FY10, 586. Those are blotter entries. Okay, those were caught where one of the best ones was somebody driving up to the gate with a cell phone in their ear. That sort of qualifies in the Darwin Award, Okay, that sort of helps law enforcement, okay? Thank you very much. Here's your ticket. Okay? But, the thing is, it's distraction. It's distraction out there. There was a great video that I think I saw on Fox News the other day, and it was a bus driver driving the bus with his elbows. Anybody see that one? Texting in one hand with his cell phone in his right hand. I mean, that's how crazy it has gotten out there. And we have got to stop that as you mentor your youngsters out there. Now, in FY10, we had 3 fatalities. We did pretty good in FY9. We had 1. We had 3 last year. One was a parachute accident. One involved an ATV. Now, we, of course, studied this ATV accident. Number 1 is, what's concerning us is a senior non-commissioned officer. Number 2 is, didn't know he had an ATV. Number 3 is, he had a whole lot of alcohol in his system. Number 4, he was driving his ATV late at night in the woods. And number 5 was, he didn't have a helmet. And number 6 was, I guess, he wasn't a very good driver. And he hit a tree. And I don't care, if you have a hard object, your head is not going to do very well against that hard object going about 30 or 40 miles per hour. And that could have been prevented. So the ATV accident. Of course, we had another soldier. The third one last year was a youngster that was on leave in Illinois and hit an 18-wheeler. And we've actually had a couple of 18-wheelers. You know, if you hit an 18-wheeler, 18-wheeler does not have much give. But it helps when you have speeding, alcohol, and inattention. Probably he was on the cell phone or texting when he hit the 18-wheeler. And that's what's been getting some of our soldiers. And then probably one of the most tragic ones that we've had while I've been here is the loss of a spouse who was 9 months pregnant. And the problem is that family was probably doing everything right except for one thing. The 2 kids in the back, the husband who was a non-commissioned officer, and the spouse who was driving 9 months pregnant, none of them were wearing seatbelts. They were in an Escalade. I mean, other than getting hit with an 18-wheeler, if you're in an Escalade, that's a pretty good car to get hit in. Problem is they got T-boned, it flipped a few times. Kids were seriously injured. The spouse, not only was the spouse killed, but so was the unborn child. Tragic. Huge consequences in that family's life. Of course, many of us know what happened. But it's just one of those tragic things out there. According to FY11, we've had 2. So we're already, getting close, and we're getting ready to hit the summer season where people really get stuck on stupid. This kid that was killed, one of them was a soldier on leave, and really, if you look at it, just bad luck. He has his car breaks down, runs out of gas or whatever on an overpass, gets out of his car, and is struck by a truck and knocked over the overpass and falls about 44 feet to his death. In fact, I think he was actually pulling over to help another person. Problem is, when you stop on an overpass like that, you got to start to put, your flashers on because people at that particular time are going about 65, 70 miles an hour, and reflexes at that rate of speed are fast. But this kid was like 18 or 19 years old, probably hadn't formed those kind of life experiences to start thinking about people's reaction on an interstate, which is, and if anybody's not paying attention, guess what? It's not going to work very well. And of course, we had the soldier going through some personal problems. My mom told me a long time ago, nothing good happens after midnight, and you see it time and time and time again. But this guy was coming back. I think his alcohol was 0.01 or 0.157. Which was almost double the alcohol limit. Coming back, he also had some some drugs in his system. Hospital-type drugs. This is probably a case where, even if he was hitting a seatbelt, he was going about 70 miles an hour, and he runs directly into an 18-wheeler. Chances are he probably wouldn't have survived even if he was wearing his seatbelts. But alcohol, drugs, drowsiness, inattention, all those kind of things contribute. Not to mention weather conditions. It was it was icy and wet that particular night as he drove home. So we got to continue to educate the force out there. Now, motorcycles. I think we have been very lucky on motorcycles. I used to like to ride motorcycles. But you know what? You know, these cars, they spend billions and billions of dollars to protect people in cars. The problem is, when you're on a motorcycle, you can be every bit as right. And as you're laying in a grave, you can say all the way to St. Peter's Gate, hey, I did everything right. But you still lose. That's the problem with motorcycles. They are unforgiving. Even if you do everything right. We had a soldier that was seriously injured. He's doing everything right. He's got the full PPE, which saved his life. He's driving behind a vehicle, was pulling a trailer. And guess what happens? The trailer gets unhooked. Now, I always said that, you know, Murphy is our patron saint in the military. It is a true statement. But I got to tell you, Murphy's a patron saint of motorcycle riders. Because if it was a car behind that trailer, yeah, you get a car screwed up. But if it's a motorcycle behind that trailer, bad things happen. But luckily, in this case, that soldier was wearing his PPE. Now, I've got a couple videos. We had this Riders Club. And I got to be careful what I say because it's still pending legal action right now. But they were, I mean, something about courageous and courage about getting on I-44 and going about 65 miles an hour and doing wheelies all the way up. And then filming it while you're doing it. Pretty amazing to me. I mean, it doesn't show courage. It shows absolute stupidity. I mean, you talk about Darwin Award. And then one of those kids could have got a rock, could have been a rock on an interstate, anything could have happened. He's flipped and he's dead in a split second. But I can't show you that particular bean footage. But I do have a couple of motorcycle ones that I'd like to show you. Let's go ahead and roll that first motorcycle video, please. And that's one where it just shows the impact on a particular person riding a bike. You know, that's the only thing that impacts that death of that soldier. It only impacts that particular individual. Unfortunately, the death, regardless of whether it's accidental or not, or whether it's because of stupidity or not, impacts a whole lot more than that particular individual. Go ahead and run the second video, please. So, that's what happens. Has a huge impact. Just the point of the accident is just a small drop of the pedal, but however the ripples are like a ripple, a rock hitting a lake or a pond, and it spreads. It has a huge impact across the family and across the community at the loss of an individual and the ramifications forever of family members. And that's what we're sort of fighting with. Now, this is a particular case. These are some pretty gross, you know, obviously a couple of motorcycle drivers that were out there just doing crazy things. But it happens when everybody's doing everything right. So for those motorcycle enthusiasts, just make sure that we're wearing our PPE, even if it's just around the block. In fact, if you look at a lot of motorcycle accidents where severe injuries happen, it's right there in the parking lot, right around the house. I had a soldier that was just getting on a bike. It wasn't his bike. It was a friend's bike at a party. No helmet or anything. I think he went like about 20 feet, didn't understand the brake. If you have, you know, the front brake on a motorcycle, it's a pretty powerful brake, as opposed to the foot brake, which is your rear brake. And he went right to the thing and flipped him right over the handlebars at about 20 miles an hour. And permanent brain damage. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that you have that breaks your heart, has a huge impact. You know, again, families, units, communities, all those kind of things. So, message here today is, this is everybody's business. Safety, just like leadership, is 24/7, 365. It requires all of us to, you know, we know who the friends are out there that are doing all the wrong things. And it takes a lot of nagging sometimes to get them to do the right things. And it's all of our responsibilities to make sure everybody does the right thing. Because our goal this summer, the highest period of time where people do dumb things is during the summer time frame. And let's get out there and work this hard this summer, and hopefully we can get through this summer without having any fatalities. You know, I also remember when I was here last time as a commandant, water safety. alcohol and water do not mix either. And the fact that we lost I think it was an engineer lieutenant when I was here last time, went out to Party Cove up in the Lake of the Ozarks and having a great time, but way too much alcohol, and he just slithered into the water and nobody ever knew it, that he was gone until late that night. Everybody started saying, hey, where the heck is so-and-so? And it was like a couple days later, the next day they had drug up the lake and they found him. So those are the kind of things that sort of keep me awake at night, and should be keeping you awake at night if you're a leader, if you're responsible for folks inside your office, inside your formation, whatever it be. So again, let's work together as a community, and let's stamp out stupid and get folks an awareness of safety and wearing PPE and doing all the right things so we can keep our workforce, our families, and our community safe. Thanks a lot.